Hello and welcome to the Superposition Guys podcast. My name is Yuval, and my guest today is Albert Lehmeyer, a career consultant and headhunter. We discuss the increasing competition for quantum talent, the geopolitical challenges affecting workforce development, and the need for more quantum awareness and education. We also discuss the salary gap between quantum and AI, advice on university education for quantum careers, the growing demand for quantum computer operators, and much more. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Albert, and thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Yuval. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So who are you and what do you do?
My name is Albert. I'm from the origin a PhD physicist with a profound experience in, management jobs along the value chain, starting in R&D after my PhD and then finalizing at high-tech sales. After that times, I have been concentrating more and more as a freelancing marketing and technology consulting, dealing especially with small and medium companies in Europe. And in the beginning of 2010, I discovered my passion for being a career consultant and headhunter in the, STEM segments, science, technology, engineering, math, as you know, because coming back to my education then, on the other hand, it is a little bit of an advantage to be a physicist and to speak with people that rely on you. And I'm dealing with quantum and quantum technology, let's say, since 3 or 4 years, more and more concentrating on this wonderful development we can see in the moment.
And you're focused on workforce development, right?
Yes, my focus is mainly workforce, coming from more than, candidate orientation and career coaching. I have to concede that I'm a headhunter, but the first step is always to get in touch with talented and highly motivated quantum people that want to discuss with me because they want to find a new job option. And what I try to do, you have seen perhaps my focus on LinkedIn, that I try to evaluate the different qubit methods are to be seen and to get in touch with people dealing with the different methods because to come to the point, I have to drink a little bit water. Sorry. Nobody knows how the race will be finalized, and therefore I think about sometimes in terms of investment people. On the other hand, what is the view of a talented candidate finishing his master's PhD degree? Should they concentrate on one method, or should one be more method open because nobody knows how the race will be finishing?
Workforce development has been discussed for quite some time as a big issue in quantum technology. That it's, other than the technology itself, it's really one of the barriers for deployment. What's new in workforce development? I mean, how has the workforce development field for quantum changed, say, over 3 years or so since you started engaging in quantum?
Yeah, what I can tell you, because I have had many interviews with candidates, but with hiring managers too, that the competition has been increasing. And one aspect I would like to mention, as you know, we have a very different, complicated, to be modest, geopolitical arrangement in the moment, leading, unfortunately, to many people that are on the way are refugees, and therefore we have stronger competition, and we have some, political blocks that is not making this job easier, but on the other hand, could be opening doors for people to come to Europe or especially to the US, because I'm even dealing to be open with, I cannot mention names because as a headhunter you work behind the curtain with people that are flying in the moment from Russia, for instance, or have been flying or are already in Cyprus. And I'm dealing with quantum people that one get out of Tehran, for instance. Just to give you a feeling, because the competition is huge. And now we have this unexpected geopolitical problems that is not making the stuff easier. One thing I should mention, I'm a wonderful discussion with Nico Moore from McKinsey. The next quantum monitoring report, so-called, let's say, Quantum Bible, will be published in the end of this month, and there we will have perhaps some new numbers on the so-called talent gap. And perhaps to finalize my thought, if we do and deal with quantum workforce, we have to create more quantum, let's say, awareness and quantum education too. I've been observing that many master programs and even PhD programs are set up now in the US, in Canada, in Germany, in Switzerland. And this is leading to a perhaps better filling grade of the pipeline. But on the other hand, what I sometimes miss is a clearer, let's say, evaluation of the numbers. And therefore, I'm striving in discussion with Nico, for instance, why not making a so-called talent mapping? But because you can, I'm a fan of research, as you can imagine, and if you find the right meta search termini, then you will find a solution that is showing more quantitative numbers, as I've seen to know. From my point of view, I've no problem to get in touch with many people that are trying to contact me because I'm rather visible on LinkedIn. But on the other hand, there is a perhaps problem in evaluating the different qubit methods. And should we concentrate on one method, or should one be, let's say, technology open? Then you come from the use case and from the application, and then perhaps you don't want to make a decision in the moment to, let's say, neutral atoms as QAra, as your company, or perhaps ion trapping or something. It's very different to bring all these aspects in one or two sentences.
Where do you feel is the biggest gap? Is it in physicists developing particular technologies? Is it in business translators that can understand the business and translate it into technical terms? Is it software engineers? Where do you see the biggest gap today?
Oh, that's a good question. Sometimes I could remark, in some companies I'm working for too many physicists in it. Therefore, it should be very sensible to bring, let's say, use case developers on the table, or people who are coming from more computer science and applied maths. But on the other hand, I'm working give you an example. You can see it openly, therefore I can name the name Electron, a very promising startup in Germany. There you have a combination of, let's say, physicists, and on the other hand, people are very experienced business development managers from, let's say, old school, in the positive sense, high-tech industries. And bringing these people together will be solving the problems, because I'm a fan. On the other, it's a bit, let's say, complicated, because I'm a PhD theoretical physicist too, when I've been younger. But on the other hand, you can see sometimes the question arises, well, who is making money already with quantum computing? Because I have been observing, let's say, a bit restructuring in some companies and setting even people free. But most of the talented candidates that are not only physicists will be finding new doors very soon, because there's such a big hype already, and we are no longer, as Nico Moore mentioned a few days ago, in the so-called quantum winter, as I could imagine. Therefore, perhaps to come to the point, it should be a mixture, but we have not enough perhaps physicists to do it, and sometimes it's better to make a mixture in the management teams, that you have another character than you would have in the department of a university. That's a physical university. No?
When you look at the national quantum programs, they do identify workforce development as a big issue. Do you see one country or a couple of countries that you think are doing a better job that maybe should be used as an example for other countries on how to do workforce development right?
Yeah, I see some countries who are very keen on making more mixture of public and private partnership. One is perhaps Germany. We have a high talent density, as you might know, in Germany. But the government is the primary customer then. It's a German Aerospace Center who is giving some money from the government. You can see wonderful programs in what was a bit surprising for me in Canada. There's a huge development. You can see it in UK and of course in the US too. What I see that some people like to change perhaps the companies not to be concentrated on one qubit method. Therefore, it's very difficult. Therefore, I'm keen on to see what is standing in the next quantum report from McKinsey. There will be perhaps a counter report from Boston Consulting, then you have more numbers. We are only a small, let's say, headhunting boutique, therefore I have not the need to evaluate all of this, but to come to the point, UK, Canada, Switzerland are very promising, and on the other hand, I'm German, as you know. We have lots of talents here, and we have lots of universities that's making new, let's say, master and PhD program for quantum science, let's say. Not only quantum computing, and quantum sensing and so on, because to get more stuff and more business development out of this, let's say, quantum hype.
When you look at software developers, they could do quantum, and maybe they could also go and work for an AI company. Do you see is there a big salary gap in favor of one versus the other? Do you see candidates that are considering which direction to go, quantum versus AI?
Yes, well, very good question. There is a bit of a salary gap when the companies I know are dealing more with artificial intelligence are still paying already better salaries because they make profit already, because they have use cases that are not so far away, compared to quantum computing. But on the other hand, the companies that are supported, let's say, by Google or IBM can be competitive. I have been speaking especially with physicists who made both decisions. And there are some companies already with, let's say, one name, Terra Quantum. I know the people quite well, who have a hybrid approach and try to combine, let's say, quantum computing, quantum physics, and AI. One other name is perhaps the Alexandra Beckstein's approach is called quantum AI, as you know, because nobody knows how the boundaries are flowing in the moment. But I'm not able to tell you what, there's not a clear percentage in salary gaps. It is a decision of people that are passionate what they strive for. That is my perhaps remark on your question. It's a matter of passion of the candidate. No?
Imagine that you have a friend, and the friend has a son and a daughter that want to go to university. They are inclined to work on exact sciences, maybe computer science, maybe physics. What is your advice? What should they learn to be best prepared to work in a quantum computing company?
A very good question. To give you an outline, I'm in a wonderful contact with a 17-year-old guy who has this question in the moment. He's 17, living in Prague, would like to go to ETH in Zurich or perhaps to your company or to the US. He's dealing with physics, with math, and with computer science, is not able to decide in the moment. And his kids, his parents are not professors in physics. They are lawyers. He asked me, and I said, okay, make the mixture, because look at everything. To give you my outline, for me it was more important to be rather good in mathematics, to understand Schrödinger equation and such things. Therefore, I would say, why not taking more computer science in it or applied maths? No? Because you are not able to understand the advantages that quantum computing will bring when you are not able to with linear algebra and Schrödinger equations and so on. But as you know, it's always a matter of talent and passion. If somebody is dealing more with physics or experimental physics, I'm not so crazy to bring him on other way. I love people that have clear imaginations and passion. Therefore, it is a mixture. This question is not easy to answer, as you might hear out of my perspective. No? The future will be bringing some more answers, but it's a combination of the three fields you mentioned.
In some areas, companies have their own training programs, whether for software engineers or other things. Do you see the same thing happening in quantum, or is most of the training happens in universities and government-sponsored organizations?
In Europe, as I can see, most of the programs are given by universities or by state organizations. But I could mention one example is IQM. You know them. They have a training academy as well to get in contact with talents. A very good approach. And let's say IBM is giving Qiskit courses, as you know. There are public and private approaches, and that is wonderful for young candidates because then they can make their own selection. The number of master programs is increasing in the moment. I don't have exact, but perhaps Nico Moore's report will answer that, perhaps end of April.
I could imagine that inside the EU, the European Union, candidates come from many different countries. But do you see a lot of candidates that say come from the US to work in Europe, or come from Singapore or the Far East to work in Europe? Or is it primarily EU candidates that move within the EU?
Let's say 80 to 90% are European citizens, but on the other hand, we have Chinese PhD people in Germany. It's perhaps a surprise for some countries. To be rather open, because of the geopolitical crisis we do have, it's not so easy now if you decide as a Chinese guy to come here. I'm always a fan of single case evaluation. And there is a huge, let's say, international community, but the percentage could be 80, nearly Pareto distribution. But to be open, I have some approaches from candidates coming in the moment from Iran. They have promised to get out. It's not easy to get out in the moment, as you can imagine. What has been of this terrible problem we have in the moment between Iran and Israel. You are coming from Israel, it seems to me. No? Therefore, I always a fan of single case evaluation. If I can help somebody to get out of a non-democratic country, I try to do my best, but it's not easy. Therefore, it's not able to give good numbers, but the numbers will be changing because of this. I have to repeat it, of this unhappy, let's say, geopolitical situation we do have. And for one final remark, I know already some PhD people from the US that say to me, we if Trump is coming, we would go to Europe. You know, then I said, okay, let's wait, keep positive. No? And I do have candidates from Europe that want to go to the US. Mainly from India, for instance, but on the other hand, Germans, why not? Why not if you get the chance or grant of MIT or let's say Stanford or so on, why not doing it? No? Most of the groups are rather international, and that is rather, for me, motivating.
As quantum computers are getting built and some companies are starting to deliver them, to install them on customer sites, do you see a growing demand for operators, for people who are able to operate a quantum computer, to service a quantum computer, to keep it running, or is it still primarily scientists and engineers?
Good good question. It should be a mixture of people who can build it. They come perhaps more from physics then. But on the other hand, there is a huge perhaps gap in operating approaches. But there are wonderful companies already having defined this niche. One interesting company for me is, you know it perhaps from Tel Aviv, is Lehmeyer. They have the marketing slogan quantum operating system and building perhaps people. And more is in Germany and in Europe, I see the trend that people are going more to, let's say, computer science to be good operators. No? But the typical passionate experimental physicist wouldn't do it perhaps, but he needs some support sometimes to get more operating standards in it. And it's a matter because, as you know already, I've been working in marketing and technology consulting. I'm a fan of minimizing the risk. When you deal with only one qubit approach, you have a certain risk in it. No? You see it on the focus on LinkedIn. There are competing qubit approaches, and perhaps could be even a combination of these would be winning. I'm not sure at the moment. And I try to get more out always with so-called expert interviews. But nobody could give me because the numbers are too small in the moment. You see it on LinkedIn on my focus. There's a nice graphics from, let's say, McKinsey, but the number of companies that have been asking the probabilities are only 24. It has to be developed, and then we see more in the next years.
And as our conversation comes to a close today, I wanted to ask you a hypothetical question. If you could have dinner with one of the quantum greats, dead or alive, who would that person be?
Oh, very good question. I have had the chance, as you have been reading, perhaps to meet John Badeen. He died already. He was so motivated when he was perhaps one of the most motivating people I've, the double Nobel Prize winner. And if I would have the chance to meet him again, he's in heaven now, perhaps I would ask him for a conversation because I learned so much as a young PhD student from John Badeen. I will never forget that.
Very good. Albert, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for your interesting questions. It was nice, and let's go on talking.